This is why Jerry's teams haven't played for a Super Bowl in 30 years. This is why they haven't really been close to contending in like 20 years, because he's obsessed with playing these games about narrative and things like that.
All right, everybody. My name is Joe Rivera, and with me is one of USA Today Sports' preeminent ball knowers, Chris Boombaka. Boom, you recently made the move from DC to Boston. So what's it like up there? Is the New England air getting into your brain a little bit? Have you seen Matt Damon, Ben Affleck around the corner? What's it like up there?
No celebrity sightings yet, Joe, but it is nice to be able to walk around and not just be permanently sweating, which is, usually my default setting, but that's definitely been nice to feel a breeze and not the swamp atmosphere that is Washington, D.C.
What's the number one tourist thing that you've done in Boston so far?
Oh, I mean, I've about 72 hours in, so all I've really seen is the bottom of moving boxes so far. I guess I walked along the Charles River, watched some crew boats go by. I think that's like a pretty big thing up here.
And boom, you're a man who's used to traveling, and you traveled this preseason around to a couple different NFL camps. Give us your best story from preseason, and maybe one of your worst stories from preseason too.
Yeah, so I love the Midwest. I went to college in the Midwest. I'm a Midwest man with East Coast roots, I think, is how I would define myself. So I drove from the Chicago suburbs where I was at Bears camp through Indiana, checked in at Colts camp to Cincinnati, spent some time with the Bengals. I'll tell you what, that's a pretty brutal drive, man. It's a pretty brutal drive. There's not a lot going on. And I've gotten to go some amazing places for our job. I've been to Japan. I've been to Paris. I've been to Las Vegas and New Orleans. Westfield, Indiana is maybe the worst place I've ever been for work. And I mean that is truly, and it was that was a low light, but I think I was at Bengals camp the day that Trey Hendrickson, excuse me, reported, and the vibes there were pretty good. So I'll throw that in as a highlight. And I got to go to a Reds game the night before, watch Shohei
Breaking
Ohtani strike out 4 times, which I enjoyed as well.
breaking news: Westfield, Indiana is no Paris, so it's good
Yes.
to know. Boom. So all right, let's dig into some preseason storylines here. Boom. There's a few things that we're going to touch on here. And it's some things they're happening. I want to see if you and I agree or disagree on some of these things. So the first story, probably the biggest story of this week leading into the final week of preseason, is the Colts and Shane Steichen opting for Daniel Jones as starting quarterback for the regular season over Anthony Richardson. So on the count of three, we're going to count down from three. And the statement here that you agree or disagree is Shane Steichen made the right choice in hitching his job security to Daniel Jones. So I'm going to count down from three, and you're going to let me know, agree or disagree.
We're counting
Ready?
up or are we counting down?
We're counting down. I'm going to give a countdown. So
here we go.
Three.
Excited.
I'm excited too. Let's see. 3, 2, 1. Disagree.
All right.
All right.
Agree to disagree.
We both disagree with that. I'm curious your thoughts on why you disagree with them.
I disagree because if you have watched Daniel Jones play football, then there you have it. That's my main takeaway here. But hey, you know what? He's a good guy, and that matters apparently in NFL quarterbacking. Yeah, I don't know what more I could say other than the fact that they don't want to develop Anthony Richardson, and his time is run out there. And I think the Colts are in for a head coaching search this offseason.
You see, I'm going to disagree with this statement. If only for, I actually think I'm going to take it a little bit different direction. I don't think this is a purely Shane Steichen thing. So I think this is like an organizational decision where they realize, you know what, let's just rip the Band-Aid off and realize maybe Anthony Richardson isn't the guy, which is why I don't really think that it's Shane Steichen sticking his job security to Daniel Jones. It's more of like they signed him to that 1-year, $14 million contract. I think that with the hubbub last year with Anthony Richardson and ruffling some feathers the wrong way in the Colts organization and pulling himself out of the game, they haven't seen enough from him this offseason, but I'm not sure it's a Shane Steichen thing necessarily. But it's interesting you think that maybe they'll be looking in a different direction this offseason.
Yeah, I think that the ownership change there, obviously the Irsay daughters kind of taking over. I think it's just time for a total reset there. Chris Ballard, the GM, has been there 9 years now. I think his time's probably come up too. So I think a total reset in Indy, if things don't go well this season, is a near certainty.
So what is this the end of the road for Richardson, you think, Boom? Because It does kind of feel unfair to him. We knew coming out of college that Richardson was going to be a project. He was pretty limited in his snaps, his experience before he stepped foot on an NFL field at that. So, what do you think are the next steps for him in the Colts organization?
I'm not out on Anthony Richardson, and that's why I think the Colts should be starting him. I mean, he's 23, I think, still. He has not played a lot of football in his first 2 seasons in the league. The guy's got to play. He's got to be on the field. And I think the ceiling is just so much higher with Richardson compared to Jones. Maybe Jones raises your floor, but I don't know if you're Shane Steichen and Chris Ballard, like why you're playing that game instead of trying to get the most out of this 2025 season, because the rest of that roster is not that bad. Like, they have a good offensive line. They have Jonathan Taylor. The defense with coordinator Lou Anarumo in there now in his first year, I think they're going to be able to do some fun things. I know that they've had injuries in the secondary during camp and the preseason, but I don't know. I kind of like that defense too. I think it's going to be a real issue with Jones as quarterback, though, in terms of being able to get to the playoffs potentially or threaten for a division title. And I think Jones being there is like just a white flag.
Right. So from Daniel Jones' current team to one of his former teams, the New York Giants, and statement here, agree or disagree on this, boom, is Jackson Dart has Brian Dable, Giants head coach Brian Dable, questioning naming Russell Wilson quarterback one on the depth chart. So count down from three and then agree or disagree on that statement. So 3, 2, 1. Disagree.
Disagree. Yeah, I'm
All right.
disagreeing there because look, Jackson Dart's looked great this preseason, and I think there's definitely cause for optimism for Giants fans. I like the aura, as the kids are saying. I like the way he comes across in these videos and in his news conferences and the way he carries himself on the field. I'm all for it. But if you watch the tape, and his numbers are great, but like if you're really watching, it's a lot of screen passes, it's a lot of easy completions, pitch and catch against second stringers, third stringers. So I'm pumping the brakes on Jackson Dart on NFL Sundays. Let the kid watch a little bit. I mean, whether or not watching Russell Wilson is going to be good for him, I think that's up for debate. But I think the Giants kind of have no choice but to start Russ at the beginning of the season.
I agree. I agree with that. And I'll say this: the most important thing for the Giants organization is getting Jackson Dart to be their quarterback one moving forward, right? Like that's the most important thing. But the most important thing for Brian Dable and Joe Shane is to keep their job, right? And with that comes wins. And I don't think that you can hitch your wagon to Jackson Dart early in the season and say, well, if we go 0-7 with Jackson Dart and he just kind of looks okay and they finish the season with 4 wins, I would imagine that Dable is gone after, pretty much 2-3 years of ineptitude since they won the one playoff game, right? So I think that, the ceiling for Jackson Dart has to be there for them to keep their job, which is why I think Dable understands starting Russ immediately it gives them period their best chance to win. I don't think there's any question about that more than Jameis Winston. He hasn't looked too bad in preseason. Again, it's preseason, but the one thing that Russell Wilson is capable of doing or can still do, as opposed to what Daniel Jones was doing, is throwing that deep ball. And we've seen a couple moon balls this preseason from Russell Wilson. So I don't think Dable is questioning it. I think that he understands what's at stake here. If they go 1-8, if they win 2-3 games, and their schedule is brutal to start the year, if they go 3-5 and decide to make the switch to Jackson Dart and he looks okay, then maybe you're talking about him saving his job. But I just don't think that's the case. I think they understand they have to win, which is why they're going with Russell Wilson to start.
Yeah, I agree with all of that for sure. Look, here's how the Giants 2025 season is going to play out. We're going to get all three quarterbacks at some point. Russ is going to come in, start the season, as you said, brutal schedule. They could play decent ball and still be like 2-6 through the first half of the season. So Russ is probably going to account for like 3 or 4 wins. He'll get hurt or he'll get benched. Jameis comes in to save the day. Shot of energy, great win one week, horrible week the next. They win the next. They win the week after that, and then all right, so that's 2 more wins, and then the last 4 or 5 weeks it's Dart, and maybe a win or 2 there. So like 3 starting quarterbacks, 5 to 7 wins. There's your 2025 New York Giants. Great job, everybody. Mission
All right.
accomplished. Hang the George Bush banner.
Boom, a question for you. Russell Wilson, Jackson Dart, and Jameis Winston. Which guy would you most want to have a beer with? It's a fun quarterback room. Which
Jameis,
guy would you
Jameis.
Jameis?
It's not even close.
Easy, not even
I
close.
was gonna spend my life with Jameis. Like that's not even, yeah. Come on.
All right. So the last statement that we have here, moving forward, this one I think is a little bit of a stretch to say, but we know the Cincinnati Bengals have had issues with their defense recently in the last year or two, and if it wasn't for their defense last year, maybe they have a chance to make the playoffs. Joe Burrow plays to an MVP level, but after they move on from Lou Anarumo, they bring in Al Golden as their new defensive coordinator, and the vibes are a little bit different. You were in Cincinnati, so I want your take on this, but the statement here, agree or disagree, is this Bengals defense is going to be the worst that we've seen during the Zach Taylor, Joe Burrow era. What do we think? Do you agree or disagree? And we're going to count down from three. Three, two, one.
Disagree.
Disagree. All right.
They're not
I'm
even gonna
glad
be
we
the
both
worst
disagree on
Bengals
that.
defense that we've seen in the last 3 years. I think they're gonna be better. Now the first, like, it's gonna take a while. We saw this even when the Ravens, for example, had great defenses, but like Mike McDonald's first season as a coordinator there, like they were kind of shaky in that first half, and we saw it with them again last year. So I'm kind of maybe superimposing that onto the Bengals, and the personnel's obviously like not as good, but I feel like Al Golden's ideas coming up from the college level are really going to help out the young players on that side of the defense. I remember talking to Geno Stone there, and he was saying that he's going to be used more similarly to how Baltimore used him before he signed as a free agent with Cincinnati. So that's something I'm paying attention to. And they got some nice young players in the secondary there. DJ Turner, Cam Taylor Britt, I like a lot. Now, a lot of this kind of hinges on Trey Hendrickson and his willingness to play for the Bengals on what seems like his deal, because they're not budging on extension talks. And if I had to, make a bet on star move prior to week one, I think he's like the front runner rather than a guy like Micah Parsons or Terry McLaurin, for example. So yeah, I mean, I kind of like what they have on the D line there. They're trying to get some depth in the middle. Inside linebacker is going to be like a little bit shaky. I think I'm not like the biggest Logan Wilson guy, but I think that the Bengals are going to be fine by season. Not fine. All right, they're not going to be great. Fine's a stretch, but they're not going to be the worst defense ever, and they're not even going to be. I think they're going to be better than the 2024 Cincinnati Bengals defense.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. Boom. I don't see a world in which this Bengals defense is worse than last year's or the year before that. I just, as long as Hendrickson, again, you made a good point. Like if Hendrickson gets paid and he stays there, no, I don't want to say no problems, but it's a leg up, right? I mean, this guy had what 17 and a half sacks last year and the year before that. So it's, talking about the NFL sack leader 2 years in a row, leads the NFL in sacks over that stretch. So they tried to remedy that a little bit with the bookend pass rusher and Shamar Stewart. We know what happened this offseason with the contract holdout and everything. So we'll see how that works itself out. But it's tough for me to say. I think what we see with defenses all the time and new defensive coordinators is it does take some regular season time for these defenses to get their footing, especially with new systems, right? And until we get midway halfway through the season, and suddenly this thing should start to click and players should start to understand their roles a little bit better. So I think, to your point, I think you put it excellent. This might not be the worst Bengals defense that we've seen in the last few years. So it's good to see that we both disagree with that and agree with each other. Boom. All right, Boom. The last thing I want to pick your brain on, it's kind of been one of the biggest stories of the offseason, the biggest story of certainly in the last couple of months, and that's Micah Parsons. Would you say what's the likelihood on a scale of 1 to 10 that Parsons and the Cowboys get a deal done before the regular season starts?
1 to 10 that they get a deal done.
Yeah.
I'll throw it at a 6.5, 7. I think I feel pretty good about it. This is the Jerry Jones playbook, man. He wants to walk into Lincoln Financial Stadium, or whatever the heck it's called, the link, on September 4th as the Eagles are going to raise their banner, and he wants to try and steal their thunder. It's not going to work. It's never worked. Jerry doesn't understand how the modern media landscape really works. He was such a visionary for such a long time, so it's tough to say on that front. But he thinks that he's going to like steal headlines and this and that. It's like, oh, next day's paper, I'm going to own it. Like, Jerry, this stuff moves fast. He's going to do his scrum though in the tunnels with 37 reporters hanging all over each other to get his sound bites and stuff, and he's gonna say things like luckily he didn't get hit by a car or anything, and this is why Jerry's teams haven't played for a Super Bowl in 30 years. This is why they haven't really been close to contending in like 20 years, because he's obsessed with playing these games about narrative and things like that. Whereas if he just paid his guys, because they do a pretty good job of getting great players in the door there, like their personnel staff, I think doesn't get enough credit. They lose, and that's not what this is all about. He should know that more than anybody, as a guy who just came in, took the league by storm with 3 championships in his first what, like 6, 7 years of ownership. So I mean, what a fall from grace there, and I just turned a Micah Parsons question into a Jerry Jones rant, which is not the first time I've done that for sure.
But
But
but you
I
know
think
what,
that
Boom? To your point, sorry to jump in here, but to your point, I mean, this is not a Micah Parsons problem, right? Like this is inherently a Jerry Jones problem. Like Micah Parsons has lived up to his draft position. He's lived up to that contract. He's one of the most dominant defensive players in football. You can stick him anywhere. He produces wherever you put him. So him wanting to get paid at this point in his career, like that's not a shock. So like nobody should be looking at Micah Parsons and saying, "Oh, well, you don't deserve X, Y, Z," right? They should be looking at Jerry Jones, to your point, and the way that he does business, because this is something that should have been taken care of months ago. Months ago, like
maybe even
we knew
years.
that this was coming. Even like if you want to go back that way, like and Micah, has done the right things. He said the right things. He showed up to camp. He showed up to practice. Like I know he's not practicing right now, but he showed up. He was there. So like he's done the right things. He said the right things. We'll see how legitimate. I mean, I know putting it out there that he wants a trade or he officially requested a trade, but Myles Garrett did the same thing and they backed up the Brinks truck for him. So we'll see. But this is not a Micah thing. This is a Jerry Jones thing through and through. I'm glad we see that the same way.